welcome again to another session of Talks and Chats. And we're here tonight with Julie Tafamumbe, and I'm so thankful again that she said yes to sitting down and sharing with us. And I believe tonight is going to be a special night. Pastor's on this series right now on checking in, and we've been touching a little bit around the area of mental health. And I've asked Julie to share with us, and we're going to have a conversation about it. But I think this is going to be something that you want to share with others, that you want to get this word out. You want to let someone else know that we have two people having a conversation about something that will matter to you. I believe when we're finished talking and sharing tonight, that somebody's going to be changed by what is being discussed tonight. So share it on YouTube, share it on Facebook when you have the opportunity. Get the word out. Let somebody know that Zion Global Ministries is having some good conversations on Talks and Chats. That's what we call this, right? So thank you again. I'm glad that you were able and available to sit down and chat with us for a moment. I was just asking Julie earlier, what does she really do? And I knew she did some work in the field, so I'm gonna have her share, what is she doing today? What is your current position? And how does a day in the life of Julie go?
Thank you so much for having me.
Bless you.
I work at Beckett Springs Hospital. It's here in Westchester. It is a mental health hospital. We have 96 beds for inpatient.
So the whole hospital is mental health?
The whole hospital is
Got it.
mental health. We have inpatient and outpatient.
Okay.
Our inpatient is only for the adults. So we do detox, and also we offer mental health services, medication management, and they do group therapy every day. And then we have our outpatient programs for both adults and kids. So I work with the kids. So I'm the director of the kids, the Child and Adolescent program. We offer what we call partial hospitalization program for kids that are suffering from severe mental health issues. So it's like a step down from inpatient. But their problems do not meet criteria for individual therapy. So it's a very high level of care. So that's kind of like what we do in our outpatient program. They meet with a psychiatrist once a week, and group therapy pretty much all day, 4 hours of group therapy.
Are these school age?
These are school age, so we work with kids ages 5 to 18.
Okay. Wow, 5 to 18. So if they're school age, are they in school and come to you, or are this is what they're doing?
This is what they're doing.
Okay.
Because in most cases, a lot of them have reached a stage where they cannot even function in school because of what they're dealing with. So they come to us, we do 4 hours of therapy every day, but they also do 90 minutes of school. So we do have an intervention specialist in our program. So it's like it's partial hospitalization. It's like a full day program. They go home at the end of the day.
So in order to come to your program, is there a referral process, or you have to meet some criteria to even get there?
So yes, there's a referral process. Most of our referrals come from Children's Hospital because they are stepping down inpatient patients to a PHP. We have referrals from schools. We have referrals from other therapists in private practice. We have referrals from the community. When we do get a referral, we schedule an assessment to determine if they meet the criteria for our program. It's a 2-hour assessment, and then for the most part, they do meet criteria, because a lot of times when somebody is referred to our program, it's because they have severe symptoms. They are struggling to function at school, they're struggling to function at home, they're just struggling to function.
This is really a tough area. I do some work with mental health, and I have clients, but they're adults, and we do something called shared living. So we really just provide them with housing and some of the basic needs, and I may supervise them, making sure they take their medications and so forth. But I have to get certifications in different areas, so I'm allowed to do this, right? Whether it's CPR, med administration, and so forth. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a hospital.
It's a hospital.
Okay, all right. So if you're at home, if you're a parent and you are dealing with a child, and that child is just, really out there. And I don't know if this is the difference, if it's behavioral or if it's mental, or is it combined?
It's combined.
Okay, okay.
A lot of times the younger kids, like ages 5 to about 8, most of their issues are behavioral.
Okay.
And then the older kids, it's a combination of the behavioral, mental, emotional difficulties. So if you're a parent at home dealing with a child with mental health issues, you just need to call us and then we'll schedule an assessment. We do have a wait list though. That's just how things are right now. There is such a great need for mental health services that, and things have gotten worse since COVID.
Yeah.
So we have seen our wait lists get longer and longer because we can only have 10 kids in a group, just because that's best client care.
Gotcha. Put some balance. Pastor did a message. It was a few weeks ago, and he did a piece from 60 Minutes, and the young kids, they were teenagers, were talking about the time of the pandemic and not being in school and being isolated and doing things in a remote way and how that made them feel. Even extreme to the point of, suicide and, hopeless and helpless and, isolation and rejection and all of these different areas. In your program, are you dealing with things like that, or do you go just to the extreme?
We deal with things like that. And it's true that since the pandemic, some of those things have really increased. We've always dealt with things like that, but the intensity and the severity of some of those symptoms has significantly increased. We deal with a lot of suicidal ideations, not just ideation, but attempts. We are seeing an increase in young people attempting to take their lives. We deal with a lot of self-harm behaviors, cutting, punching, burning themselves, hitting their walls on the head. Their heads on the walls. So we are dealing with a lot of severe problems. Depression, it has increased significantly. Anxiety, but also PTSD, because what the pandemic has done is, because kids are spending a lot of time in the home, sometimes if the home is unstable, they get to experience a lot of unhealthy stuff happening in the home. So it's causing a lot of trauma as well. There's definitely a significant increase in the cases.
This PTSD is post-traumatic.
Post-traumatic
syndrome.
Stress disorder.
Stress disorder, okay. Wow, so 5-year-old, potentially.
We are working, actually right now I'm working with a 6-year-old that attempted to suicide. They, wanting to die because of something that she witnessed in the home.
Okay.
And then having those thoughts and feelings of blaming herself because of what the parents did. So things like that, we are seeing a lot of things that are happening in the home because people are spending a lot of time in the home because of COVID.
Yeah, that's the part I kind of wanted to touch, that because this whole being at home piece, and it's possible that folks have been dealing with things for, periods of time anyway, but is it exacerbated or, accelerated because of that home environment or being at home?
Which is sad, because the home is supposed to be a safe environment for the kids. But what's happening is the parents are struggling. The parents are frustrated. There's a lot of stress on the parents. And then it boils down to the family as a unit. And because of COVID, there has been a significant increase in things like substance use. So we know what happens when there's substance use in the home. There's most likely going to be neglect. There's most likely going to be fighting. There's most likely going to be, lack of that parental presence in the home. And those things are affecting the kids. And it makes their mental health issues worse.
I was wondering about school, you said there's school as a part of the program, but, our audience that are viewing us, folks are having all kinds of issues. And sometimes you wonder, what's going on with my child? I did right, I thought I did right, and they're starting to demonstrate or show signs of something is wrong, and it's like a disconnect, and what I've seen, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is parental connection with children, I hate to say in these days versus maybe 20, 30 years ago. Is there something that's getting in the way, or do you see children moving into another direction where parents are just disconnected from their children?
And I think also going back to COVID, one of the things that happened is because of staying at home for a long time, it increased screen time for the kids, and which goes back, which is connected to that disconnect between the kids and the parents, because they would rather be on their phone. So going back to the theme of checking in, that's where that comes in. That as parents, we need to check in on our kids. Because one of the things that we work with when we work with kids in a mental health hospital, for the most part, they don't know how to express their feelings. They do not know how to express their thoughts. So as a result, they keep everything in. So that's why it's important for the parents to be able to do that checking in. Checking in means, you're asking, how are you feeling? What's happening? Tell me what's going on with you. So you're able to assess where your child is at when you do the checking in. So it's very, very important for us to check in with our kids.
It seems like there's maybe some strategies or I don't know if there's some, some high-level things that you might be able to share with our group here listening in, that, these are 2 or 3 things that you could do, should do, especially in light of, everything that's going on. I mean, we just not long had a pretty massive shooting, and the exposure to the different things that our kids see, that it'll show up on a phone, immediately, or you're watching TV, happen to watch TV. But, is there anything that you can think through that, just in the checking in piece?
I think it's important to be intentional about how you communicate with your kids and what you communicate about. So one of the things that at least I try to do is to have, we have family dinners. And that's the time to check in. When there's no phone, we are not focusing on the TV. How's been your day? What's going on at school? And one of the things that I encourage is that, when we check in, we are not just focusing on what's going on that's negative. Because I think a check-in also needs to focus on what have been your successes today? What's going on in your life? Tell me something good that happened today. so that we are not just focusing on things that are not going as well in their lives. So being intentional about those things, going to the mall with your daughter, with your son, so that you spend that time, some quality time where there's no distractions. Because I think in the home environment, there's the phone, there's the TV, there's this, there's that. So sometimes it's good to take them outside of the home environment to spend that time just to do a check-in. Go to the park, take a walk. Those are some send a text message if it's not in the home environment, hey, how are things going today? So it's important because then they feel comfortable sharing those things, because like I said, for the most part, teenagers want to keep stuff to themselves, so they need to feel comfortable, they need to feel heard, they need to feel understood, and being able to be intentional about doing those things so that they are able to share is probably very important in checking in.
That group therapy, he says about 4 hours a day. So in that time, is that a check-in or is it strategies?
Group number 1 is checking.
Okay.
The whole hour we are checking in. We are looking at the symptoms. What's happening with you? How are you feeling? We are also assessing daily. We are also assessing how are the medications working. We are assessing how are things going on at home. How is the relationship with the dad, especially if it's been a struggle? What about mom? So what are some of the things that you can do to work on that relationship? And like I said before, we are also focusing on, tell me your successes last night, yesterday, today, things that are positive. So pretty much we are saying how you're feeling and what's going on.
Got it. I was thinking too about the way kids communicate today. That conversation, what you said, is not really the norm. From my experience, it's not been, parents are not really just saying, hey, how's it going? How you doing? And, it may be a text message, maybe. But do you find that, kids struggle in communication? Or maybe it's parents. Maybe it's both.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both, especially because I think sometimes what happens is if kids feel that the parents are judging, the parents are not hearing them, they don't understand, they shut down. So that's a breakdown in communication, because everything else that you say after they shut down is kind of like just hitting the wall. So it's very important for the parents also to work on how are they approaching their kids, how are they communicating to their kids. Because again, I think when kids feel that the parents are understanding them, they are able to open up a little bit more. Because most of the time I hear my parents don't understand. My parents don't understand. And that's what we hear every day.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, hey, Miss Julie, I like that you do get what I mean, but my parents don't understand. So once they feel that the parents don't understand, it just becomes a barrier to communication.
That's too important. Yeah, so I'm thinking the difference between, you have a child that's just going through the process, going to school and so forth, and they're not necessarily having behavioral outbursts, or they're not necessarily having seemingly mental challenges, because it's the way it shows up, right? But dig 1 or 2 layers underneath and you find out they're in depression. They're just quiet, they keep to themselves, they don't cause any trouble, things like that. And I'm like, this area of suicide, which I see is on the rise, right? Especially in our youth. Are you identifying, is there things that are beginning to happen that's causing this rising rate? Maybe pandemic for sure, but is there things that you kind of pick up on? That
There's definitely different factors. When we work with kids, I think we've talked about the family environment. If it's not stable, that affects them. So that's a factor. Also, the social aspect. We know that at that age, socialization is big. So if they cannot have those good relationships with peers, it affects them. They don't know how to cope with that. Also, going back to the family, if there's a family history of mental health, that's also another factor. If parents are not stable, if they're dealing with drugs and alcohol in the family, or if mom has her own mental health issues, dad has his own mental health issues, those are some other things that affect. So it's a lot of like environmental stress, social factors, the family. It's just all these different factors. But one of the things that we teach a lot of coping skills.
Got it.
Like, okay, you're dealing with all these things, then how do you cope? Because one of the things that I have noticed is that a lot of the kids struggle with frustration tolerance. They just cannot tolerate frustration. There's no resilience. Something that I would say small, they want to kill themselves over that.
Jesus.
So we are teaching them what does mental stamina looks like, what does being resilient look like, just for them to be able to increase that frustration tolerance.
This to me sounds like something that should be taught in school, period. Just, third grade, second grade, whatever, begin to introduce, when you said mental tolerance. So what do you deal with? How do you deal with it? So one of the questions I had was processing. Me or you hear something, we process it a certain way. It goes through our own filters and, whether it's judgments, opinions, whatever, logic, facts, and here's a response, based upon what you said to me, or, oh, by the way, you said something that was offensive. Now I can take that and attack you. I can take it and say, oh, well, big deal. I don't care about that, and walk away, but how do I process it when I'm already struggling, whether mental, behavioral, how do I process it? Do you see areas of, you were just kind of talking about this area of processing, and is that a intelligence piece, emotional piece, where is it where is it coming from, the response?
Right, so we have this type of therapy called DBT, which stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. And one of the things that we look at is we have three kind of like states of the mind. We have what is called emotional mind. And the emotional mind is when we make decisions based on how we feel. So it's more reactionary than, it's not rational. It's I feel angry, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to punch you in the face. You're not being rational. You're using, all behavior is being driven by your emotions, how you feel in the moment. And then we have what is called the rational mind, where you're using logic, you're being rational in making decisions, but you're not acknowledging your feelings. You're not acknowledging how something has made you feel. And then we have in the middle what is called the wise mind. So the wise mind is a combination of, okay, I'm acknowledging how I'm feeling right now, but I'm going to take a minute to process those feelings. So that's a combination of, I'm acknowledging how I'm feeling, but I also need to slow down and think about what do I need to do about how I feel right now. So that's kind of like one of the things that we teach, that it's healthy to pay attention to your emotions, but don't let your emotions drive your behaviors. Because also you need to think about how is this going to impact me and other people if I behave like this. So that's the middle ground that we are teaching them, that they need to be able to put the two together, and that's a healthy state of mind. So that's where that processing comes in, but also at the same time acknowledging that I'm angry, I'm anxious, I'm irritated right now.
Yeah.
Acknowledging your feelings. Because I think a lot of times it's easy to just try to hide your feelings, which is not a healthy place to be.
So you guys share with them healthy, unhealthy, you know, and you said 5 to 18. So this, I mean, that's a, you know, wide 13-year difference. Someone's in kindergarten, someone's potentially a senior in high school.
But they're in different groups.
Got it. Okay.
So we have a group for 5 to about 9, and then about 9 to 13, and then 14 to 18.
Processing similar? You
I mean,
know,
it's
in buckets?
different. So it's the same thing, just processing at different levels, that are age appropriate. So with the younger ones, we use a lot of play therapy to help them process stuff.
Yeah, so, you know, this country has a lot of folks in prison. We have a lot of people that, you know, in mental situations, whether they're in a hospital scenario or, you know, might even be locked up, you know, but it's specific for mental health. I'm wondering how, you know, folks who are not in any of that, you know, we want to say I'm normal, right? Versus what's not normal. What's normal versus what's, you know, because I'm still processing according to my upbringing, where I come from, you know, any experiences I've had. I'm sorting through those things, right? It doesn't matter if I'm 15 or if I'm 45. You know, I'm still processing, and we have a lot of people who are struggling, and they're not in the hospital. They're not taking medication, but they're really struggling. You know, some of which are probably viewing this. They're struggling on just the dealing with the day-to-day. You know, whether it's bills or these kids or, you know, I think I'm calling it stress. And whether it's identified stress or not, you know, is there things that you pick up on or you see? I mean, I know you see stuff with your kids, but just if you go back into your education, you know, and dealing with adults, you know, something that you see there too. It might be even similar to the kids.
In terms of how they're processing or how they need to be processing?
How they need to be.
And that's, I'll go back to, that's where that check-in comes in, because what is check-in? Check-in is kind of like a self-examination, okay? It's kind of like asking yourself the questions, what's going on with me? Where are these feelings come from? That is processing, right?
Yep.
Where are these feelings coming from? What's making me feel this way? I've been angry for 2 weeks. What exactly is making me feel angry? So what I would really encourage, and I'm glad that Pastor is talking about check-in, is to encourage everybody to do that check-in on yourself. And then after you do that check-in, after you do that processing, why am I behaving like this? What do I need? Is being able to ask yourself, what exactly do I need? And being able to get the help that you need if you need other people outside of you to intervene.
Amen. There's this, you know, areas in our lives where I believe, you know, we need healing, we need deliverance, and that may not be clinical, you know, but it's necessary.
It's necessary.
Because of historical, that bag he has has some names and terms in there that are, hard, whether it's shame, rejection, all the different things that have happened in my life. So yes, I am a functioning adult. I have a job, I'm taking care of home, I'm taking care of kids, all that stuff. But in my backpack, I got this stuff, and it's how do I process, how do I deal with that, and do I ever even uncover that? You have a program where kids are coming, or young adults are coming, you're being referred, you have a waiting list, but you said adults should check in, right?
Adults should check in, and I mean, the bag with all the stuff, that is what we want to help you process in therapy. Because sometimes, in as much as you check in with yourself, sometimes you do not know how to check in with yourself.
That's what I was.
So that's where
I was struggling with that.
Right, that's where the therapy comes in, because when you come to us, a lot of times, like an iceberg, what we see is the tip of the iceberg. The bigger part of the iceberg is underneath the water. Right. So a lot of times, what we see is, okay, the anger, when somebody's angry, we can see that. What we see is, okay, I think somebody's isolating. Okay, we can see that. We can see that somebody is kind of like sad. We can see that. What we don't see is what's underneath the iceberg. All those insecurities, the trauma that you have gone through, the broken relationships that you're still trying to deal with, grief and loss.
Right.
Just a lot of unresolved issues that are underneath the iceberg. So when we talk about processing, when we talk about checking in, we are not just focusing on what's on the surface. We are digging deeper, because some of the things that people see are being caused by things that are underneath the surface. Some of the trauma is what's causing me to be angry. Some of the abandonment issues is what's causing me to isolate. Right. So that's why it's very, very important either to get help if you're struggling to process through all the issues that are in your backpack.
Yeah, we have these, I was talking about these mass shootings, and and of late there's, young adults, young people, and it's been going on for some time, right? And you wonder, okay, just if it happens, is everybody got mental issues, mental health issues, or is it really some of the things that are underneath, and I don't fit in, so therefore,
right, I'll isolate. So we are seeing the isolation, but we really don't know what's triggering the isolation, what is triggering the anger. So when you do some work, when somebody is really checking in with you, you're able to bring those things to the surface.
Well, I wanted you to, if you could, share with our viewing audience tidbits, help. I'm personally believing that the body of Christ needs help. And, we got our own issues, churches fight against churches, comparisons and all these different things that doesn't join us closer together. It actually causes us to be separated. Why is that? Where is that thinking coming from? But just in general, if we say, we have however many people we have here that need help, and checking in. If there's something that you could share, in a few minutes, you could just look at that camera and from your heart, just let people know,
Okay, so I think step
you see
number
this every
one.
day.
Step number one is to be able to recognize that there's problems and that you need help. Because I think a lot of times people are in denial of their own mental health issues. And, you know, I'm fine, you know, and as long as we are in denial, it's very difficult for us to get the help that we need. So, yeah, step number one is to be able to acknowledge that I need help. We have what we call protective factors in mental health. Protective factors are things that we need to help us be more successful. So they are things that will decrease the risk of mental health issues getting worse. And one of those protective factors is a support system. When you're able to identify people in your life that you can open up to, people that you can talk to, it can be family, it can be the church, it can be friends, then I think that's also a very important step to not just checking in with yourself, but allowing other people to come in and check in with you. Because I think that is very important. When I say, hey, give you a call, Elder Lattier, how are you doing? How are things? Last week you told me that you were really struggling in this area. How can I support? So sometimes we cannot help ourselves, but we need the support of others. And that's where community comes in. Again, I think the next thing that I would say is if things continue to get worse, ask for professional help. You know, there's a lot of places that do counseling for kids, for the adults. Seek professional help. Because sometimes when we don't seek professional help, we leave things to just deteriorate until it's kind of like too late, sometimes to help the situation. Some of the cases that we deal with of suicide are things that could have been prevented, maybe if somebody had reached out to somebody, if somebody said, hey guys, I need help. So it's very, very, very important to be able to have that support system. And also being able to have healthier coping skills. And I know one of the things my kids always says, like, Miss Julie, if you say coping skills one more time. But I think it's very important how we deal with things, because sometimes the way we deal with things just makes the situation worse. We self-medicate with food, we self-medicate with drugs, with alcohol, you know, those are things that are not healthy. We're kind of like just putting a Band-Aid on the issue. But when we talk about checking in, we are saying, okay, we want to take off that Band-Aid and we want to get all the way. And that's what checking in is all about.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I believe this, again, this series that he's doing and, you know, our chats, I believe are helping people. And I know there's more. There's more help that's needed. And as Julie has shared, I pray that if you need professional help, that you would seek professional help. But checking in, being able to connect with somebody, you know, the Lord is our vertical connection, but he surely gives us people that we can connect with horizontally. And so in the body of Christ, there are someone somewhere that is ready for you to have a conversation with. And I pray that we can get you to someone that will be that either mentor or somebody, a sounding board, or somebody that you can share with. As our brother Vernon was here, you know, he has a checking in process, a support process with someone that he talks to. So I'm praying that you guys will have somebody in your life, mother, father, friend, someone in your life that you can talk to. But it's so important. And Julie, I thank you. I truly thank you for sharing with us.
Can I just say one more thing? I think also removing the stigma that comes, that surrounds mental health, because I think sometimes we underestimate how mental health issues are affecting us, and we just like, there's a lot of stigmatization, especially around the Black community. So mental health issues are real, and we need to seek help in order to get better.
Yeah, I believe the Lord wants us to be whole, and that's whole mind, body, soul, our whole being. So again, thank you again for sharing with us, and I pray that someone has been helped. I hope and pray that you will share this with someone else, some tidbits, some nuggets that were shared tonight by Julie, and until next time, shalom.
The sign you know,